There we go.
Most recently, I helped out on the Preakness horse race, day before yesterday. The 150th running of the Preakness, but the bulk of my business is Formula One, Super Bowls, Olympics, Super Bowl halftime shows. I've done mega shows all over the planet for the bulk of my career, and then I've done several hundred smaller shows that I actually enjoy far more than the big ones. So the idea of doing shows like this, where we can really make some changes and have some impact on the production of the show, is nice. Working with a smaller group of really about 10 of us that put on the show here versus 10,000 of us that put on a Super Bowl. So for the fly-off, we're going to keep that under wraps. We just announced the venue. We don't really want to go too far. So it's, let's make sure I've got the clicker doing the right thing here. Great. So, all right. So as Sky mentioned, we're going to be at Moffett Airfield in Mountain View, California. We are going to ship some things there, and then directions. The directions are the important part of this slide. So the way the facility works, there's a bunch of entrances. The only entrance that we're allowed to go in and out of really is this Ellis Street gate that's at Moffett Airfield. That's a public entrance that there are still some requirements. At any time we can be asked for a passport, a government-issued ID, and we should all have our credentials on as we do today, aside from me. Do as I say, not as I do, right? So being on the federal airfield, they can ask us for ID or credentials at any time, so we want to be carrying that stuff at all times. Another big... The question is, do I need a real ID for that? Yeah, I would say real ID is the safest, and then passport or government-issued ID, and then our event credentials we should be wearing at all times as well. They expressed a tremendous amount of flexibility with us last time. I'm just not sure that we get the same flexibility this time around when we go back over there. But moving on to the next one, what's in my paddock? So we're still working on some of this, but here's some criteria that we're relatively certain is going to be in there. 20 by 20 tent for each team. It will have 4 walls. It could be fully enclosed if you guys want it fully enclosed, or if you wanted to do some sort of heaters in there to keep you warmer, or maybe AC. Heaters are probably more likely needed in there than warmers. We're talking about going in the first quarter of 2027, which in the Bay Area can be pretty chilly. Last time we were there on Leap Day in 2020, and we had almost every weather condition, from a little chilly in the mornings to much warmer in the afternoons, and then the fly-off days were actually quite nice. We'll do 2 6-foot tables in there, just folding tables that you can put whatever you'd like on. We're required to have a fire extinguisher in each one of the tents that I'll provide. And then we're trying to figure out exactly how much generator power we can get out there. What I've proposed to the event is we'd like to get everybody 100 amp service for each of the tents. That's a goal. That's not necessarily approved just yet. I think that would be a very fair way to do it and get you a decent amount of power to get things going. You will be able to bring some of your own generator power out there, because I think you're going to need it for charging some of the things that you're going to be charging out there and additional support. Any other questions about paddock? The configuration and the exact layout isn't certain just yet. Sky and I have talked about a couple different layouts about what may work, trying to make it as fair as possible so nobody's push is too much longer than anybody else's. Making sure that nobody's more or less exposed to the wind or something like that. We have 2 questions in the audience, please.
What about flammable fuels? Do we have gasoline or...
Gasoline is allowed out there. We will have to take some precautions and how we treat things like the various fuels that'll be out there. We have to get you very specific criteria for what's allowed out there, but according to the airport, we're going to be allowed to have every type of fuel out there, whether it's anything from Jet A to diesel to gasoline to battery power. But the only fuel that's available on site, I understand, is Jet A. If somebody wanted to buy some from there, I'm sure they would gladly sell it to you. But that's, I don't know if anybody's going to need that. We had another question in the audience. I'm sorry.
It dovetails into that. I was going to ask that question, but in regard to hydrogen, is there, I mean, if we go with that as a fuel source, or is that allowed on site, press, or what?
There is a risk for more exotic fuels that the venue will not approve it. So that's just,
Okay.
can't say anything beyond that at this point, but you're taking on a bit of risk for anything that's a less conventional fuel.
Okay.
If that is something that we should put out, I mean, we can get answers relatively quickly from the team over there. If we think hydrogen or some more exotic fuels are very likely or guaranteed to be used.
If I could get an answer on that, I'd appreciate it, because we're at a point of no either way.
Okay.
So knowing for sure one way or the other would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think we can probably get an answer to you back within a week on that, as long as I get that question out today. We have another question in the audience.
Yes, sir. Can teams bring their own generators and charging systems?
The question is, can teams bring their own generators and charging systems? The answer to that is going to be yes. We probably have to have some limits on what's going to be brought out there. You know, bringing out a twin pack or something like that is probably not in the cards. Bringing out, you know, a Honda 250 generator or something like that probably will be in the cards. Any other questions about the paddock side of things and what we're planning on over there? Great. I have to read this one. All right. So the overall sentiment behind this slide is that you need to be self-sufficient. Sky touched on it before. You have to be able to move your own equipment around, whether it's with an engine or by hand. I think the requirement for on the launch pad is 2 people.
Yeah, so for things like the adversity mission where there's no payload handlers needed, you should be able to deploy and do the flight with just a maximum operating crew of 2 people.
So I think we have 6 people that are allowed to bring the machine out there.
Yeah,
right?
so for like your productivity mission or something else where you're allowed to have 4 payload handlers, they are allowed to help with kind of taxiing and things like that. But
Then there's,
the advice is to plan to be able to get your system around and set up with only 2 people.
and the other part of it that we learned last time when we did the Go Fly event, the tools and equipment and all that, all of my guys carry tools. We will not be able to share. That's going to have to be stuff that you take care of out of your own paddock or on your own person, or when you guys are out at the launch pad. You need to be entirely self-sufficient. My team will take care of all the tents, tables, chairs, gens, fire extinguishers. But as far as the fueling and things like that, we'll fuel the generator that we provide, but if you were to bring those other generators, you would have to take care of your own fueling. Security will be an important one, so we provide site security. So we'll secure the overall site, everything from storage areas that we control to overnight security. But as far as security inside your tent, I won't be able to do a security guard per tent. So how you protect your equipment or protect your tools or protect your flyers, that's going to be on you guys inside your tent. And there's also going to be an exterior area outside your tent. We're not exactly sure how big that space is just yet, because once we begin to build it, if it's a 20 by 20 tent and a 30 by 30 space, we start to extend this paddock quite a bit, but it seems like those are 2 workable sizes for what we're talking about in the paddock. We'll do security overnight. Typically our work day out there, or access out on the site, is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we clear the airfield entirely. We have to be off of the airfield entirely. So we will have security there overnight, and then we'll start allowing people back in at 7 a.m. the next day. I touched on the event credentials sort of thing, and then government issued IDs at all times, passports at all times. The reason that's on there, it's not our requirement, it's a NASA and Google requirement that anybody could be asked for ID at any time out there, so we just do our best to be good tenants out there. I think that's it for this slide. All right, just again, back to the self-sufficiency side of things. Your team has to move your own equipment at all times. My guys are not available to help with those things. Trailering equipment in for paddock load-in day is something that we do allow. We allow the trailers to come onto the ramp, load into your tents, get settled over there. I think we'll probably end up with 2 days of load-in, I think is what.
Maybe. So remember that in the rules you're told to kind of, even though in the productivity mission you have to be able to set up within half an hour, that's from kind of that's from a state of your aircraft. You could even have the engine already idling, right? When you're driving out there, you could have your avionics are already powered up. But you should be able to, set up relatively quickly. Be able to fly later that morning if you only had access at 7 a.m. Kind of coming in cold from a, driving 75 miles an hour down the highway.
So we will allow the trailers on the ramp. We will not allow the trailers to remain on the ramp throughout the entire event. I'll try and get parking on the site if people want to leave trailers there nearby, but we won't be able to leave them in the paddock for the event. The number of team members, my understanding is that it's 12 team members that are allowed in the paddock overall and 6 that are allowed to bring equipment out to the launch pads, and then 2 to actually fly,
2 are part of
launch
the
and
6.
fly.
Yeah,
2
2 are
as
part
part
of
of
the
the 6,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm missing that 2 in there, but a little redundant there. As you can tell, the self-sufficiency thing is a resounding theme. Paddock 7 to 7. Yep, that's okay. So we do have quite a bit of rules about the battery and fuel storage and usage. I won't read all of these off. This is something that we used on another project, another show, the Drone Racing League. So just trying to take every safety precaution we can and still keep it reasonable for you all. This will all be shared. I'm not sure there's anything on there that jumps out that's needs to be called out specifically, but it's just overall safety precautions. Hazmats, I don't have good information for you just yet. I need to understand from the airport what their requirements are as far as hazmat storage and disposal. So we'll have to get back to you on that, but it is on the top of our list to get back to you on. Any questions on the site operation? Lots of questions on the site. Well, why don't we start over here and then we'll work over.
Can you go back to the training slide? So I think for mission 1 or the productivity mission,
Can you ask your question at the microphone so I don't have to repeat the whole thing? Thanks.
So for mission 1, the productivity one, where we might be carrying like a bunch of stuff like spare battery packs and such, I think it was my understanding that we can use the system we used to transport our vehicle all the way up to the airfield to transport it also to the fly-off zone, right? But trailers will not be allowed to be left on the airfield, or they will only be allowed during load-in and load-out times. Does that sort of cover moving up to the mission area, or?
So I think if I were, the best way that I could articulate this is that think of the vehicle that you're using as part of that productivity mission requirement, and if it's also the vehicle you're using to like get the staging areas for the other mission, that's part of your system. But the thing that the box truck you rented to like bring in your generator and your other tools and equipment and your folding chairs and like all that other stuff, that's the sort of thing that you shouldn't be leaving in your paddock. Like the passenger car you rented to get your other 5 team members there, that shouldn't be left. That can't be parked there.
Okay.
I mean, that shouldn't. You guys have feet, but you
and-
know what I mean. Like,
And from our experience in 2020, I mean, a simple dolly would have saved the day for a bunch of folks. The idea of trying to roll on the casters that are part of the machine is just not great, right? The ramp over there in particular is tough to navigate. There's a bunch of tow hooks that are down into the concrete. So, yeah, navigating the space to the launch pad is a substantial effort and is worth a lot of thought.
Gotcha. As long as we can have a vehicle on there to move stuff
Yeah.
around, I think it should be fine. So
Yeah.
just clarifying for that.
yeah, if
Thanks.
your the ground transportation system is like a flatbed truck or something like that, and that's okay. It's kind of like the excess vehicles that will have some very limited access. But I think most teams shouldn't need it.
I saw another question over here. Was that you?
Is there a known altitude cap for the airfield, or an idea of what a max
Is it
altitude?
2,000,
It
2,000
will
feet?
not be. So there is a Bravo shelf above it, but we're not going to be going above 400 feet, and it might be even lower than that
Okay.
for a ceiling.
Yeah, below 400 sounds great. Yes, sir. We had Wi-Fi to a certain point, but the ramp got so big. Wi-Fi in the paddock. let me add that to the list. I haven't thought much about that one yet. I know we had Wi-Fi closer to where the hospitalities were built and the exhibitors were built, but I don't remember it extending out into the paddock.
Yeah, because we had, it's likely that this event will have other programming, like, you think, how would you characterize it? Not necessarily an air show, but like other, presentations and talks that might be part of the weekend, either not necessarily at the exact same time that flying is going on.
Mhm.
And that will be in kind of different spaces that are kind of at the ramp or very close walking distance to the ramp. So those spaces would have Wi-Fi, but
Yeah,
on the
we-
ramp itself, I don't think that's likely.
It's just hard to get it out there. We would have to build separately. It's doable, obviously, but are you asking, is it a critical part of your functionality of the flyer?
Thinking ahead, just if we need to update something at Paddock.
Gotcha. Yeah,
But
I
it's
didn't
the sort
think
of thing,
about that.
if you require like support from remote team members who are running software, I would not rely on somebody else's internet connection, even if it's Kevin's.
Yeah,
Kevin's a pretty reliable guy,
I would
but-
say you're correct in that.
but,
Just
rent-
Wi-Fi out there is,
buy or rent a Verizon hotspot or something.
yeah, I think that's a safer play for sure. So for now, I would say there's no Wi-Fi in the paddock provided by us. Any other question on site ops or logistics? Yes, sir, in the back. Could I ask you to come up to the microphone for us so everybody gets the question? Thank you. Sorry to make you walk all the way up.
While we're on the topic of like Wi-Fi internet, are there restrictions on either ground-based or aviation radios that like walkie-talkies or something that we can use to communicate?
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that they're licensed, that your frequencies are licensed in that area, because obviously with NASA being there, Google being there, the airfield being there, we'll be operating on a bunch of temporary channels there. You don't want us bleeding into you, and we don't want you bleeding into us, obviously. So I would just ask that they're FCC licensed channels or frequencies you're working on. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Is there a possibility to visit the site anytime before the competition?
As far as getting onto the ramp, would we do a site visit for teams at any point?
I don't think so.
That would be hard to do. So that the airport is a public facility, so you could drive in through that Ellis gate that I was talking about and drive right up to the airport. But as far as getting onto the west ramp, I don't think so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
You can get close, like there's a publicly accessible nature trail that goes along the airport perimeter fence and stuff, so.
Yeah, on the other side,
You know,
there's a running
if you
path.
happen to be in town, you can
Right.
kind
Yeah,
of
if
drive
you-
by and check it out.
you
Now, I'm
happen
not
to be in
sure
that
that
view.
if you want to get onto campus at NASA Ames, like that's just kind of a cool facility, but I think that also requires a purpose to get a visitor badge there.
Yeah, the Ellis gate you can get in because that's the public gate that you can just come into the airport from. But I'm sure security will stop you somewhere along the lines as you get to the NASA or Navy side of things.